Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is Haitham Al-Beik, CEO and founder of Wings. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, David, for having me. I'm very excited.
All right, before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to reach the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. All right, Haitham, how did you get into the cannabis industry?
Oh, what a story. So this actually happened quite of a surprise, beginning of early this year, actually. So just to kind of step back a little bit. So we're a company that's focusing on automating retail. And we're all about sustainable automating retail. So the retail business for a while hasn't been quite sustainable. And especially with happening right now, it's been very difficult to look at the economies with labor shortages and kind of understanding logistics, how you want to pull in as much margins, et cetera, et cetera. So we have our own lab that we've developed a while back, and it's in Littleton, Massachusetts. So while we're working on this automation system and focusing on the retail business, one of the owners of a cannabis dispensary is in the area. They were building up their place. And they were a team who are very, very, very much into efficiency and automation, and they're really trying to just kind of, okay, how can we really be as efficient as we want, especially in the cannabis industry? And so they heard about us, and so they walked into our lab, and I talked to the CEO, David Giannetta, and he was like, "So what are you guys working on here?" Literally within hours, just explaining to him what we're doing and what we're starting with automation, he literally looked at me and said, like, "I want this." Like, "What do you mean you want this?" So he's building it out to go live very soon. And he said, "Look, this is fantastic for the cannabis industry. Let's discuss it further detail." And it was great. He was very open. We started studying the logistics of the industry itself, the business, the people involved, the customer experience, all of that. And really came out with something really great, and something that's really going to blow up the waters for the cannabis space. And that's essentially how it started. That was early January, before we even announced what we're working on, which came out like 2 weeks later. So that's how it began. And we really got involved very deeply into the ecosystem of it, into the customers, into the budtenders, into the runners, into the assembly people, into the back office. So that's how we started. And yeah, it was very interesting.
So is that conversation you had with the retailer, was that the Cannabis Collective?
That is correct. It is a Cannabis Collective, yes.
Okay.
Collective Cannabis, actually, yeah.
Okay.
In Littleton, Mass, yeah. So they're opening two, one in Littleton, Mass, and one in Billerica very soon. And they really wanted to kind of fulfill certain automation, certain efficiencies they want. The labor shortage was a big issue. The cost was also a big issue. Even if you can get people to work for the retail, it was an issue if somebody actually just kind of decides, but became sick and they can't come to work the next day. Now performance is going to dip, right? Mm-hmm. But the real core thing is actually because of online ordering. That's really the crisp of it. So if you're a retailer who's just mom and pop and you have customers coming in, most likely you're okay. But as soon as you offer online ordering, right, to the customer, it's so convenient right now that you do online ordering. And right now, the ratio used to be the walk-ins was much larger than the online ordering. Right now, it's going up to 50-60% of a retail business are online orders. In many cases, it's the primary source of income. And if you look around in the cannabis dispensaries here, at least in Massachusetts, there's people waiting outside 20 to 30 minutes waiting to pick up their orders, right? So this is a fundamental thing where the digital world kicked in, but the business operation is still analog. Nothing really has changed inside. So it's kind of like a first step to automation for online ordering, but then you didn't do anything in the internal logistics, so now there's a bottleneck. So this is the first thing we want to do. How can we elevate that customer experience? Because if you don't, it's over $43 billion of revenue losses worldwide because of the adoption of online ordering. People just leaving, loyalty, customers are just not coming back, people don't want to pick up their orders anymore, the staff is getting fully stressed to try to fulfill those orders very quickly, and that's the dynamic that we need to resolve at this stage.
So how does the system work? Is it like Amazon lockers or Tell me a little bit more about how it actually functions at the retail location.
That's a good point. So when we actually came out of stealth, before we came out of stealth, thinking about how to solve this problem, we looked at the full logistics. We looked at the full logistics operation of the system, and we wanted to come into the point where we have the most difficult, the highest pain point in the logistical operations. It happens to be right in the middle in the customer service. Why is that? You've got external logistics, which is customer logistics, and you've got internal logistics, which is the operation of the business. Okay, great. I can have my internal logistics. I can make it perfect. I can set it up amazingly, right? But the external logistics, the customer logistics, is the highly dynamic one, right? So you've got customers coming in anytime they want. They want orders however they want it. They may walk in. They want to pick it up. So it's highly dynamic. So you can't really control people. You can't say, this is what you want at this hour at this time. So, okay. And since already automation in that portion of the logistics already began by online ordering, right? So taking away from the walk-in essentially, this is a great segue to start automating throughout the internal operations of the business. So having said that, we wanted to create a system, a robotic system, automation robotic system that is not borrowed from manufacturing or from other industries. That's what's been happening in the service industry. So the software solutions of online ordering came from e-commerce. Some of the robotic solutions coming from manufacturing, right? So nothing really been invented that's meaningful for the retail business itself. Why is that important? Number one, we want a system that actually takes the minimal amount of floor space. In fact, we don't want it to take any floor space if it's possible. Why? The value of square footage area of a retail is highly valuable, right? The next thing you want to put anything on the ground, whether it's robot, conveyor belt, anything like that, now you're taking away space from customers and staff. That's money you're burning down. That's number one. Number two, keep the products protected, always secure, no matter what, right? So in the cannabis space, as you know, high value products are in a vault somewhere, right? They're not in front of the customers. They're in front to demonstrate to customers, but when somebody orders, needs to be assembled, it's in the vault behind the scenes. Recently, some dispensaries would put a small shelf outside just to put mobile orders to quickly deliver to customers. Not really appropriate, but it's all what they can do right now. At the end of the day, they can only put maybe 10 bags in there when you have 50 people making online orders. So that's number two. Make it and make sure it is secure. Number three, we knew going in that every cannabis space is like a snowflake. Everybody has constructed in some weird way. Vault is here, a cashier is somewhere else. So we're like, okay, how can we make a system that's versatile? That no matter where the vault is, no matter where the customers are, or the budtenders are, that we can fulfill this. Great. Lastly, but this is an important one, is that the operations need to be concurrent, meaning it's able to deliver products to the budtenders or to however in concurrent operation, not one by one. If you have a locker system, for example, which is usually what we have, if I have to go in and pick up, let's say you have 10 lockers, I got people still waiting behind me. I still have to do it one by one. Number two, somebody still has to put stuff in the locker, right? They have to leave their station, come out and put it in a locker system, and then the budtender has to go and take it out. It's a lot of work. You're not adding efficiency, you're actually adding more complexity. So this is where we solved the problem in this method. We said, keep the products in the vault. Essentially what we did, we have a module, which kind of looks like a shelf, but it's an intelligent shelf. The assembler is assembling the products. Online orders coming through, or any order for that matter, comes right through. They assemble the products, they turn around, they put it right into the machine, and they select what order is this for. And they forget about it. Each one of those modules, very tiny, we'll talk about it in a second, can store up to 35 orders at once. It takes no floor space, 3 foot from the ground all the way above. And in the case of Collective Cannabis, they ordered 3 of them. So they have 3 of them right inside the vault. Now, their vault and their customer service, there's between them a wall. But now the runners have to go to the vault, have a hallway, turn around 90 degrees twice, go right in front of the budtenders at 8 stations, right, including the mobile order station, with a cart and orders, and try to fulfill all of these requests by the customers walking in or mobile orders. This path is very long, and 2 people, sometimes 3 people, have to deal with that as well. In some cases, the budtender is the runner. They have to go back and get the products that they want. So we eliminate that. The modules goes directly through the wall, right to the customer service, right on top. Doesn't take the floor space, and then curves around. And now it's just a track that goes right behind all the budtenders with 8 drop-off zones where each budtender is behind them. So what's the experience like? You coming in front of me, I'm the budtender here, we're talking, you're making an order, great. I put it on the system, say done. The assembler gets the order, does it, puts it in the bag, whatever he needs to do, puts it right in the machine, and then the machine knows this is a walk-in and sends it out immediately through a shuttle right behind my back. It goes green, I turn around, pick it up, right there with the customer. I never leave my customer. I spend my time with the customers. What I love about high performance and really trustworthy dispensary places is the relationship you have with the customer. You know this. It's about taking care of your customers. It's a medicinal solutions as well. You have more time to do it. And if I have 8 budtenders, it should be able to do it to all of them in a concurrent fashion. No bottlenecks, no gridlocks, all happening at the same time. And the amount of space it takes off the wall behind me is nothing, is half what a tray would take if somebody had to go back and forth. So that's in a high level what the system looks like, at least what we're proposing. But just one more thing I want to add is that because this doesn't use the floor and actually can go up to the ceiling and go all around, at the entrance at the dispensary, there's a person who checks IDs, right? Before you go all the way inside. There's a good percentage of people walking in just want to pick up their mobile order. They already know the place, they're very comfortable with the place, it's not new to them, and there's a good percentage of people who want to get to know the place. So they want to walk in and get to know the place. Now, because of the system that we have, now we can extend it and actually send one right where that person is. And if somebody just wants to pick it up, I can request it, and a shuttle will pick it up right from the vault, delivered to me right here securely. I get it, give it to this customer, and they can walk away without having to create any congregation or any congestion inside the retail. And now you created a separation of concerns and logistics for optimal performance. So the opportunity and the possibilities extends when you start going from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. Does that paint a good picture, David?
It does. Does it work pneumatically? Is it like the tubes at the bank?
Not like the tubes, but it's highly based on real time, and there's mile trackers, and there are actually 2 tracks with a gearing system that actually takes those shuttles, and it's shuttle based. So the shuttle based, and the basic aspect of this is that the shuttle system, which is a mechatronic system that we developed, very tiny, highly compact with a lot of technologies in it, with sensors, like mini Teslas essentially, riding on a railing, and attached to it is a tray. Why the tray is important, because you can put anything in it. So you can have a bag and a drink. You can have a bag and a little thing in it, right? So it's a very flexible environment. It's not a hook to hold a bag or anything like that. So it's highly flexible. And the shuttle system are designed to operate independently from each. It's wireless. So, and they talk to each other. They know where everybody is, what's outstanding, where everything is, and they will wait as others pass through if they need to, so to avoid any kind of gridlock and make sure there's as much efficiency as possible. So it takes lesser space than even any other systems like a conveyor belt or anything like that.
Do you have a background in automation or robotics?
Yeah, actually, my thesis in college was an autonomous Mars rover that we worked with MIT and NASA to kind of prototype a robot that goes to Mars and autonomously start building blocks for a lab without somebody down here every 12, 14 hours controlling it. So that was my thesis project. And since then, it's been about automation and traceability, Six Sigma operations. Uptime is very important to us. So even if a shuttle breaks down, this thing should still be working, operating. Even a shuttle can carry the other shuttle back home to be fixed. So we're thinking of a lot of things in how the robotics for retail is a unique approach than anything else that we have to really think about. That's why we had to invent it and not just borrow something from manufacturing.
Are you still, have you moved beyond the proof of concept and prototype phase? Like, are you now working on that to manufacture the first system for, what is it, Collective Cannabis?
Yeah. So actually, we're beginning the installation of it, and so the parts of it. And our lab is a little bit tiny. It's about 400 square footage, and the system that I requested, which is a 3 module and 8 drop-off zones, is pretty large. But because of the modularity of the system, we're able to just build parts and put it right in. So I would say end of March, April would be live at Collective Cannabis, and actually would invite people at that point to kind of just see it, to kind of experience it.
Oh, absolutely. That has to be incredibly stressful for you, right? I mean, this is your baby going out and on its own.
I grew up watching the Jetsons.
Yeah.
And what I liked about them is that how they had the separation of not the ones on the floor, but they had stuff coming from the top and things like that, where the humans are free and these things are come in and go when they're needed. And so, but nobody's making it. So I decided I want to do it. And now it's getting closer to like there to go like live. It's a bit stressful, but exciting, very exciting.
Now, the entire system remains in the location, right? Or is there anything that goes external?
No, everything is inside. The majority of the system is in the vault. Essentially, it's a vault within a vault. So that's really how it works. And if people probably are curious, if the shuttle has to leave the vault and outside to the customer service area, isn't there a hole there? Isn't it open? Well, yeah, number one, it is higher. It's smaller than a door, but there's a shutter system that we have made of steel and aluminum. It's a sandwich one that opens when a shuttle comes out and closes. You need a huge tool to really break into that one. And if you do, you have a system and that's not even in the vault already. So it's highly secure. So we're going to be working actually with the CCC, the Control Cannabis Commission here in Massachusetts, to see what's their thoughts on it and how we can try to get this system more certified. And really, because if this system exists and when it really kind of proves itself out, this will open up the doors for many entrepreneurs and investors to open up places where they say, hey, if I have this system, this will get better approval. I can now relocate my staff members to focus on more fulfillment and assembly as more orders are coming through. And the beauty about this also is that if, let's say, at one point you've got less people walk in and more people online orderings coming in, any station can fulfill anything, whether it's online or whether it is a walk-in, it doesn't matter.
Is this an opportunity for retailers to sort of set themselves apart from the competition by having something unique in the shop?
Yeah, I think so. Because at the end of the day, it's not so much only about dealing with labor shortages. It's about how a retail with the same number of staff increases throughput, increase bandwidth, the I/O. And it's all about efficiency in the logistics. Take away the labor work that doesn't really add too much value and add consistency. That's how you start increasing bandwidth. Now the budtender has more time with the customers, which means that you're able to sell more, maybe upsell, maybe have more loyalty coming through, fill up the other budtender stations. So throughput is what needs to happen in a sustainable fashion.
That's one thing I was curious about is, do you see it potentially going the other way where it's all online orders and people are just coming in to pick up their online order? Because one of the big things about successful retail locations is that sort of consultative relationship that you have with customers.
I think it's we're going to see a trend where when the business itself is operating really beautifully, people will start be comfortable because after your consultation and getting to know the business, you've already acquired a loyal customer. For the most part of that journey for that customer is online ordering until something changes. So, and if you're able to separate that concern to be dealt automatically, because that's really what the customer wants. They know what they want, you want to fulfill what they want, which is go in and go out very quickly. But for the ones who want to come in and spend time, now you have even more bandwidth to spend more time with the new customer, and have a clinical session, have a consultation session, get to know them, where now that loyalty now switches over to an online ordering one. So we'll see the trend changing. So many stations right now, you'd see they have maybe 80 to 20% of walk-ins versus online ordering. And I think that's going to start changing a little bit. We may see dispensaries where they just do online ordering, like kind of like what Chipotle did with their digital kitchen, be like a digital cannabis dispensaries, where it just focuses on like, hey, I know what I want. These are specific customer base, high traffic urban areas could be, for example, where people just want to come in and walk away. It's an opportunity for sure.
It's said that it creates a happier workforce. In your opinion, does it create a happier workforce because it's sort of taking out the minutia for them, or what is it that is going to make an employee happier?
The employee wants to change people's lives. They want to be there for their customers. They want to be there to listen to their customers. They want to be there to feel that they're making a difference. It's a fulfillment. It's a sense of fulfillment, right? A repetitive task that is not directly connected to a customer can be very tedious and also can be less fulfilling and less happy work, especially when the workload keeps going up and you just don't have more than 2 arms or 2 legs. So now we start to kind of do the shifting where, okay, we need to invest more in the relationship between the customer and the budtender, whoever else in the area, to showcase the products, talk to them. This is a much more happier experience. In fact, let the automation system do the heavy speed, fast work. Let the people do the work in a much more slower fashion, but highly more impactful. That's where I think the fulfillment comes into play. When you stress out the staff member, especially, by the way, hyper-focus is very critical for staff members. Every member who decides at some point that they have to do 2 tasks is not an efficient person in the business. But if you say this is your job and it's only one thing to do, to work with the customer, connect with them, great. But suddenly I have to go run to the assembly, I have to take care of something else, then that breaking of focus creates a non-fulfilling experience. So the more focused staff member, the more happier they are, and they can see that relationship grow much larger in the long term. And you can retain them for a much longer time too as well.
How does artificial intelligence play into the system?
So artificial intelligence actually, and by the way, in terms of assembling a product and to the point of delivery, most places, retail businesses we discovered, have no data. They have no data, how long it's been held there, for online orders especially. When did they come in? When did they requested it? How long before they got it? When did they leave? These are important data points to really further optimize your ROI or your business logistics. Nobody has it. It doesn't exist. So we're like, okay, this is number one. When you have that data, then you start doing predictive analysis by saying, look, I understand all these customers. This customer A coming into the play who ordered, for example, at a certain time, we know him. He usually comes in 5 hours later, consistently. Don't assemble his product now. Typically, the assembly is done chronologically as they come through. You don't have to, right? So now we can be more efficient by really doing what matters at what time and let the system figure that out. That's one aspect. Here's the other one. We will be adding further AI automations like cameras and sensors to further enhance the experience. For example, the budtender is an important person. The assembler is a very important person, and we care about their experience. When they turn around to pick up the bag, right? Most of them will turn on with the right hand. Some of them are left-handed. And the system will actually visualize and sees that. And how the product comes down for pickup will actually shift to the left or to the right based on that person, and even the height, if they're a shorter or taller person, so that the way they pick up the order is intuitive. The more intuitive it is, subconsciously, it is less work. Doesn't feel like work. And the height of it and everything like that is important. Similarly to the assembler, how they put the product into the assembly. Because they do this hours and hours and hours throughout the day. So we want to make sure even that experience is highly intuitive. So AI is being used there as well to mitigate that. There's other things we can add to it later on, obviously, but when you have a hardware platform in the business, right there, that you can tap into with important signals, boom. Now it's just software layers you can top on that, but without actually putting in a hardware platform where the I/O, by the way, could be humans, but also could be machines. So let's say in the future they have an assembler that makes and assembled certain products. We can connect that to the delivery machine, and that automatically puts in the data and feeds it right into it. So you can start automating it backwards, and you can start automating it forwards. It's very important, and that kind of scales out from there.
So you launched in January 2022?
Correct, January 13 to be exact.
Oh, right on. Obviously, you had the initial response from Collective Cannabis. That was excellent. Have you had interaction with other potential customers, and sort of what have their thoughts been?
When we had the PR news, we had a lot of calls. We had a lot of calls for other business, like, what is this? How does this work? How do we get it installed? And things like that. So what we started to do, we didn't expect that kind of demand. In fact, we were waiting till like half the middle of the year because we're planning a full production in Q3, Q4 this year, buying a much bigger industrial space and making the assembly and getting to know the customers really well. So this huge demand came through. So we started taking deposits to confirm people who are interested. And we already fulfilled more than 10. In fact, we even had some international. We're even talking to some people in Canada. So, which is kind of crazy. And so now what we're looking is like, okay, this is great news. We need a bigger space and we need more people. So we're actually also raising funds and ourselves for the company to start really kind of scaling up this because of the demand. And Collective Cannabis, the CEO, is also investing in the company. And of course, he has two other locations. Here in Massachusetts, you get a license. Typically, you have 3 other locations. So he's interested to kind of push this further. And he's going to help us to kind of get into more closer into the cannabis space. So we know this demand is going to keep going up. And it is the only automation system that really works in the regulated market, which is also very critical to us too as well.
Is the biggest interest in it as a result of the labor shortage or other factors that are drawing people's attention?
Honestly, a lot of them actually called up because of efficiency, because now they can with the same staff, they can relocate them to more assembly, because now they're getting a lot more orders coming through online. And they're like, if they can fulfill more of these orders, then they can mitigate the wait times. And by the way, when you put the order in the machine, it's in real time, sends an automated system message saying your order is ready. For real, not fake this time, because when you want to request it, it takes less than 50 seconds for it to pick up any order and deliver to a spot. So that's also important. We want to make sure that there's not a lot of waiting time. So many of them, they have the staff and they want to kind of be able to say, oh, wow, so now I can really cut this to increase my throughput. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So that's one advantage. But yes, indeed, labor shortages is one aspect, but also when you have a staff member who has to leave for whatever reason, or there's turnover concerns, this is when you have to deal with the cost of hiring somebody, payroll, managing, and things like that. That this is mitigates completely.
With scaling up, are you still on pace with your goals in Q3 and Q4, or have you moved those up as a result of the sort of immediate interest?
Right now, we're focusing on trying to get the best customers that actually there's a really clear win-to-win relationship between both of the markets. So we're looking for dispensaries, for example, who have at least $1 to $2 million annual revenue, recurring revenue, really taking a lot of online ordering, where they have really clearly a lot of issues with wait times and fulfillment, but they got the customers they need, where the impact is very clear. And because our initial run also is using, high-grade lab materials, right? So by next year, we're going to cut the cost down. Our goal is to lower the barrier entry for this hardware so that it's as cheap as possible to get it into the dispensary. Because the way that the business model actually works, we just want to take a commission on every order that's been delivered, like a small percentage, and that's it. And the hardware entry, that can be broken down into different ways, and we're kind of going through that as we talk to a lot of these dispensaries. So right now we're looking maybe at 10 or 20 dispensaries to work for Q3, Q4 production, and we'll see how that goes. We got also a lot of interest outside, so we're trying to manage that expectation too as well.
So it's not just a straight equipment purchase; it's more of like a subscription where they're paying. You said a percentage per order.
Per order, correct, yeah. So depending on the cannabis businesses, some of them just like to buy the whole system outright and just install it, just easy on the dollar's money. So we're looking into that as well to see what financials make sense. So we are there to open the conversation because it's an opportunity, and we're there to really kind of elevate the whole cannabis industry. It's an opportunity. So we want to listen to you guys. You tell us. Let's have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. What is the size of the company now in terms of employees, and what are you looking to ramp up to?
So right now, in terms of so it's broken down to the software engineers, industrial engineers, and there's the operations and things like that. So right now in total is about 10, 11 employees. Very technical, right? It's like divided by highly technical, and then you got legal
Yeah,
for obvious reasons.
Right.
So we want to up the technical a lot more. Or also we want to actually start investing in support and staff, field staff engineering. So for example, let's say dispensary, hey, we're interested. Like, great. Okay, so we send somebody out there, they investigate the whole space. Whether it's a new development or a business that's already operating, we're open to both. And we go in there, assess everything, because you want to make sure that we do this right and there's a win-win. And so we're looking to up this at least by 1.5, 2x in terms of staff to really start producing this in a big way.
What does the ROI look like for potential customers? And then what do you offer in terms of maintenance and support after the installation?
For the first people or businesses that we're going to be work with, we're going to have a much longer warranty because they've been there with us from day one and we're learning from each other. So the warranty usually, which covers 3 years, we're going to cover like 5 years, for example, right, at $2,500 or $3,000 and things, something like that, on an annual basis. But highly discounted. For example, let's say the system at Collective Cannabis would have been around $60,000 or $50,000, and we just kind of went down with a $30,000 price point, for example, right? Because they kind of taking the first stab on this, right, and really kind of proving the system. In terms of ROI, especially on the Collective Cannabis, actually, when we sat down with it, we looked at the numbers. We took half the year and we took all the peak hour performances hours and we divided that by 2. And the gain from just that small piece of the pie is about 7,200 hours of gain. And in addition, they actually didn't need one of the runners. And they relocated the runner to one of the assemblers. This is the plan, which is about $50,000 in savings just from salary, and doesn't include in terms of payroll and management and things like that. And that's a saving through year by year by year. That 7,200 hours can add up to $500,000 of sales throughout an annual year, right? So there is a potential growth in so much more. And we're looking at an operation between now and 8 months to see how this will operate in real life situations. And this is highly conservative numbers, right? So simply by looking at the math, you can say, okay, gains are pretty clear here. So that's why the hardware needs to be the lowest barrier to entry, because we know we're here for the long term. We're not here to make money now, right? So we're here for the long term. You sell more, you win, we win. That's how it works. It's much easier that way.
I mean, I have to imagine like launching a business and something that seems like it might be pretty material intensive. Are you running into any issues in terms of procuring materials to build the systems?
The only issue we had when Collective Cannabis wanted this like almost immediately, we're like, okay, we need to order more parts, which was fine. We have no problem in actually getting those parts. In these particular ones are high grade, more expensive materials. Because they came out just out of the lab prototyping and piloting, which typically they're over-engineered for the most part. So by next year, the orders we want to get the materials is not going to be an issue. They're going to be highly, highly tuned for that market, and it'll be a lower cost too as well.
You said that you're looking to ramp up to a bigger space. Are you looking to stay in the same area, or is it possible that you might have to move?
We're looking at around nearby. We are in the Boston region. There's a lot of industrial spaces. We're looking to move to about a 5,000 square foot space, essentially. So now, actually, that may become our headquarter. So now the R&D lab, as well as the operations, and then the full assembly will be all in one building. So we are right there, seeing every little thing, every little detail. And as customers come in, they can also see everything they want to see too as part of that too. So that's one of our biggest goals this year, to make that happen. So we're actually raising $1 million seed after all of this happened. We actually announced a $1 million seed round, and we already closed almost half of that. So which is not too bad.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. We're looking for like a cannabis VC to jump on this.
Gotcha. With the new space, are you going to do all manufacturing in-house, or will some of it be outsourced?
Some of them will be outsourced, but 100% assembly is going to be there. Some of them will be outsourced, correct, which is manufacturing coming from, because we're using some technologies from Japan and things like that that are pretty unique, that allows us to take the minimal amount of space, to minimize the amount of friction, to give the most efficiency of performance, right? The other thing is that, the whole system is 80% sustainable. Like it's renewable materials. That's the other part of this. Most robotic systems in the market coming from manufacturing, they're not that. We use low energy. We try to use minimal amount of energy too as well. They go to sleep most of the time if there's no traffic going on here and there. So battery operations is what's critical to us. And because it's wireless, it can go as far as it needs to in that space of the customer.
Is there any limit to the size of the application? Or, I mean, it seems like in terms of modularity, it could fit pretty much any location.
True. I mean, that's kind of the goal. Of course, we'll figure it out as we go. Right now, we're kind of limiting it from the module to about where it needs to deliver, maybe around 60 feet, to offer about this minute kind of delivery zone. So as we continue operating this between now and Q4 of this year, there'll be like V3, V4 of this product where the shuttles can ramp up faster. They can, speed up a little bit more without affecting the product itself. So the distance-wise right now can be, but it's only the timing concerns there. But for the most customers, as long as they know, so you can scan, for example, let's say outside dispensaries, if a customer wants to pick up their food themselves, it'll tell them, hey, I found your product. It's coming up right now. It's charging delivery zone. It'll give you a full cycle as it comes through. So it's like entertainment a little bit.
Does it make any noise, or is there any sort of concern about that in the dispensary as it's shuttling orders back and forth?
That's one of the most important things that we focused on, is that we want to make this as quiet as possible. The materials we use, it's a little bit more expensive than what we'd like, but we also want to reduce the amount of oil-based materials too as well to get more sustainable and to minimize as much noise as we can. So even when the motors ramp up and go down, even if it makes a little bit of noise, it should sound nice. It should like really cute. And that's really about it. There'll be lighting effects, but the noise should be almost very minimal. Should not sound like a factory, that's for sure. Okay. Again, Jetsons, right? That's what I want. Just flying around.
Do you have a personal connection to the cannabis industry?
Personal connection in what sense? I mean, in terms of how I feel about it, or?
Yeah, no, a lot of people in this industry got into it because, they like sort of the social works and that the industry does. They have a personal connection in terms of how it's been used for medicinal purposes for people they know or themselves. I just like to ask whether or not, are you a user? Is there a particular reason that you chose cannabis, when it comes to automation?
I'll tell you. I mean, yeah, I'm a person who took a long time before trying anything in his life, right? So essentially, even alcohol came in when I was like 30 years old. So this came in like a bit afterwards. And to me, I'm actually a person who meditates a lot. I do a lot of meditations, and I talk about the self. I talk about the energy of the self, how to relax the mind. If you want creative ideas, how you want to unlock it through your heart rather than your mind. And so the medicinal aspect of the cannabis actually allowed me to really kind of relax the mental mind and really open up more of my heart, essentially, and come up with this more intuitiveness, intelligence. Because I see the mind as more of an intellect engine, which is great, but the true intelligence comes from the heart. And so this allows me to unlock a lot of these things, and which kind of puts me in a different place, because I actually have a book where I note down different chemistries that says, okay, this is good for analytical thinking. This is good for meditation. This is good for artistic drawing. This is good for communication. And this is my relationship with the cannabis industry, if you'd like to know.
Yeah, no, I always find it really cool, just because I feel like it's different for everybody.
It is indeed. And it needs its respect, right? It's a plant. And, and the plant needs respect, and the environment around it, which is the people that are involved in it, also need to respect it. And the people who are dealing with it also require the same respect. You can't have an environment that's there to de-stress people and help people for them to be stressed, right? So let's create an environment where it is actually a happier workplace, literally.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also like that it's such a collaborative environment. And it sounds like that, that initial customer, Collective Cannabis, you have that sort of collaboration where, are you working with them in terms of, do they have any input in things that could potentially change the design?
Yeah, no, it's essentially actually for their third retail location, which hasn't been built out yet. They're still trying to figure out where it's going to be. They already came to us working together and said, let's work on this together. So to actually create a highly optimized solution, like for example, as we talked about, where we can have something closer to the door just for mobile pickups and then change the environment inside. When you have that flexibility, now adding 3 dimensions to your setup, the way you decide to construct your business changes. The opportunities just changes completely. We even haven't talked about, ability to deliver, for example, in the middle, if somebody wants to demonstrate something to someone. So the opportunity is really great. So they want to work with us later. Most likely that's going to be either beginning of next year, depending on how things are going. But it's going to be a very collaborative work in that case. They're highly, highly into efficiency and logistics, that they're hungry for something like that. They look up to places like Chipotle, McDonald's, how they're very efficient and how they can get the operational margins really high, how the profit margins really high. So how can we do the same thing with the cannabis dispensary business without sacrificing essentially the experience for the customers and for the staff? That's the key.
You talked a little bit about your ideal customer. Is your ideal customer somebody that's a new build, or will it also work if you're going into an existing facility?
It'll work with an existing facility. Obviously, a new build gives us more flexibility in terms of really kind of milking out the most efficient approach and design for them as we are throughout this process. But nonetheless, if you have a business already operating, we can go in very slowly, switching between whatever system that you have right now and slowly start kind of empowering each of those budtenders one and one to really start doing the switch between them. So we're open to both.
Okay. You mentioned delivery in the middle. Delivery in the middle. What do you mean by that?
Imagine, for example, you have a station where it's not near the wall. You have some people sitting together in a circle to do a demonstration, to showcase certain products. Instead of having all the products right there in front of you, taking up space, you only can just request the one that you care about. And then it can come in right from the middle in front, and you can take it and you can showcase it to the customer, and you can send it back and order some new ones to come in. And you don't have you don't have to leave the table. You have to go somewhere else. It could be a new product you want to showcase, for example, right? So it allows for a dynamic display of product, because essentially what you have is you have displays of products in the cannabis place, right? And you have a limited amount of space and a limited amount of products to showcase. But imagine you have one space that it is open. And hey, every week or so you can come in, there's something new to showcase, and you can bring in some new, set of 5 or 10 different cannabis products, solutions, or let's say new company that you worked with as a partner, they want to showcase it. It's all about the experience, right? So we want to actually give you more ideas to have a different kind of experience inside. It's time to elevate the retail experience. We're going to make it more fun. That's kind of where I'm coming with this.
I mean, to that note, does it have applicability in other industries?
Oh yeah. So food service, right? So the thing is with the food service market, which is broken down to QSRs, so the quick server market. You've got the fast we talked about, like the McDonald's of the world, and then you've got the cafe, like the Starbucks and the Dunkin' Donuts of the world. But then you've got the ghost kitchens. Right? So ghost kitchens, for example, is a box, essentially, where typically it's about 70 to 30 or 80 to 20% ratio of fulfillment and assembly and distribution, delivery, logistics. Now, what you could do is we're talking to one of the companies who are focused on ghost kitchens, where what if you just extend that fulfillment assembly to almost 95%, and the delivery, which is typically our third parties who come in through DoorDash or Talabat or Uber Eats, they just can come in and right outside the building, they just go and scan, The food comes out, the product comes out, they take it, go in the car and leave. And you can see like multiple of these delivery zones. And since they are concurrent, 3 of them can go at the same time, get their orders and move away. So the application now you're increasing ROI big time for the same space, right? Because now you're tapping into a different dimension, a higher dimension. So in food service, the same thing. No more those shelving units, right? No more going to the store to pick up your burrito and realizing that it's not ready yet, or somebody else took your order. There's a place that I went to where I was standing to pick up my bag from this shelf, and the guy behind me was waiting, and I'm like, "What are you waiting for?" He's like, "My name is Jack." I'm like, "Okay." I'll look in front of me. There's like 4 bags with the name of Jack, and he's going in there, touching each one and seeing which one. I'm like, "This is not contactless." There's another one where the girl wanted to pick up her order, and it's all the way to the top of the shelf. So we really kind of ruined customer service, right? We really need to kind of elevate that. And speaking of AI, we can make those actually when they drop down. If you're in a wheelchair or a shorter person, it will drop further down for you, so you can have a more convenient pickup. So it's time to respect the customer experience as well as the staffing. They're people, the same people who work in staff, the same people who buy and shop, right?
Right. You had mentioned that you had a couple of things that you wanted to show off. What did you have in terms of visual aids, I guess?
Oh, I was going to show you the layout of the Collective Cannabis just to give an idea to see where the value add is there. It's to give you a visual of that if you wanted to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's check it out.
So here, for example, this is the front, the top view layout of Collective Cannabis. And you could see that this is where the vault is. This is the wall that's behind everything else. There's a security door here, there's a security door here. Here are all the budtenders, the stations, and essentially the customer service. So right now, runners have to go back and forth over here with a tray and have the orders and deliver to all these budtenders, and including mobile orders, essentially, which is a separate station over here based on requests. So instead, we eliminated all this path and cleaned it out so that this can be used for something completely different, which means this door is always locked, this door is always closed. And now what they did, I ordered 3 modules that you could see right here. And essentially, they can assemble the products and put them right through. And in this wall, there's a security shutter that actually goes where the shuttles come through. And these are the different drop-off or delivery zones for each budtender right behind each one of them. So it goes right directly to that. My point earlier too as well, because since this is now on the floor, this can go even higher. And depending on the height of obviously the business, this can extend all the way and go way in front where the original people entering and the person who is actually checking the IDs and say, hey, if you have a mobile order just to pick up, we can go ahead and just request it from here, give you the order, and you can just exit without having to walk all the way inside and have a whole line just for mobile orders. So the flexibility really allows for that one in a big way. And just to kind of give you also a visual, this is kind of what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
So between these two is a wall, right? So you can't really see inside here. And here's where all the budtenders are standing. So they are putting each one of these modules has 2 deposits. So they don't have to fight each other where to deposit the products. They can just put it in here and forget about it. And this is over 90 plus orders can be held in this module for that small area it takes, which means what's unique to Collective Cannabis means I can make an order early in the morning and I can pick it up anytime I want because there's so much more bandwidth for the retail and they don't have to worry about it. It comes right off of the security shuttle and then stops exactly where the request came through. And that's really what I wanted to show. And this is different schematics on to kind of get the idea that it's only 12 inches off the wall, which is really tiny coming off the wall. And the full height is about 89 inches that you can see over here.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Would it draw a lot of power? Like, or, you mentioned that sustainability is something that you guys keep in mind, or is it going to be pretty efficient in terms of its power demands?
We're trying to make sure we use the minimum amount of power, and the system itself is actually using DC power, so the battery systems and things like that. And we continue to try to make sure that we learn with the AI system, will continue to tune itself to only use the power needed based on the distances traveled and the energy used. The motor systems that's involved in the whole setup will be upgraded in time to even lower that energy even further. We can see, for example, a small shop with, let's say, one module and let's say 2 or 3 drop-off zones can operate in a solar panel, for example, with one battery. So imagine that. Can you imagine one little retailer just sitting in the beach connected to nothing? This would never be possible before, but this is the kind of direction that we're trying to take towards that. Yeah. Our first version is going to be okay. We want to get it lower than that.
Well, before we get out of here, I just wanted to ask, is there anything else that we might have left out or anything in particular that, you want to make sure the CEN audience knows about wings?
So we're 100%, I don't know what else we're going to say, but we are really trying to bring in automation and robotics that are unique and built and designed for the service industry by the service industry. We need to stop borrowing tech from other industries. They have fantastic ideas and technologies, but we need to start thinking about it from people perspective. Our company's always been people first, technology second. It's always been the case. We don't just build technology for the sake of technology. If it doesn't elevate the current business you already have, the square footage is not elevated, the customer is not elevated, the staff is not elevated, it's not worth doing it. So this is what we'd like to share, and that's why we're very open coming up to the market, is because we want to have a conversation. So we're open to these conversations. Yep.
No, well, I really appreciate your time. We really haven't gotten into a lot of the retail side of the business. We normally stay on the manufacturing side of it. And so I appreciate your patience, and it's just kind of interesting to get a little bit of a glimpse into it.
Oh, thank you very much. And you can imagine the system also very useful in the back office when products come in, how it goes to different stations in the back. So the potential is there to really advance logistics.
Okay. Well, I mean, hey, as it continues to advance into other parts of the industry, please let us know. I think that'd be really exciting.
Will do. Thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Well, Haitham, thanks again for joining me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. It was great. Love talking to you.
All right, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use, even just a thumbs up on YouTube. Finally, if you want to reach the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. All right, for Haitham Al-Beik, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.